Hey, I am going to walk you through the schedule for Summer Institutes for the People, Places, and Stories Strand, which used to have a different name, but now we have changed the name to be more descriptive of what's actually happening inside the Summer Institute on People, Places, and Stories. So, what we're basically going to do is model in the mornings via Latin or maybe some other language, but right now I think the only language that we have lined up is Latin, just because of like the the current pandemic and all that. It's made things a little strange, but right now we're looking at having Latin and maybe me teaching French as well. And then we're going to walk you through in the morning in Latin or French 5 days of instruction. And it's really more than 5 days of instruction because every morning you're going to have at least two, and most mornings three lessons, like back to back with a little break in between. Then in the afternoon, we're going to be working on teacher stuff. So like nuts and bolts, looking at rubrics, looking at the lesson plans, which you will also get. So we're going to be basically giving away all our lesson plans so that you'll have lessons and lots of resources and all kinds of cool things. The schedule is right here. So let's go take a look at it. So you see that we're going to be meeting 4 different times. So on June 8th, we're going to start at 9 a.m. Eastern time. And then on June 15th, Monday through Friday, we'll start at 9 a.m. Mountain time. And then on July 20th, it'll be at 9 a.m. Eastern. And on July 27th, it'll be at 9 a.m. Central. So hopefully we're making that a little easier for folks around the country, because if you're on the West Coast, 8 o'clock Eastern is 5 o'clock on the West Coast. And I don't think people want to get up quite that early in the summer. Maybe you do. If you do, thank you for being so dedicated. I also want you to know that everything is going to be recorded, and some of it will also be pre-recorded. It depends on how many people register and how many coaches and demo teachers I can plan to employ. I want to have as much that's not pre-recorded as possible, but some of it will probably actually have to end up being pre-recorded. But even the stuff that's pre-recorded will also have a live interactive component where you'll have a coach or me watching or interacting with the pre-recorded information with you, or the demo lessons, and answering your questions and debriefing with you. So it's not going to be like just watching a webinar that was already recorded at any point in the whole week, but some of the content might be pre-recorded for you, but that's all right. We're also setting up Facebook groups so that you will have a place to interact with the people who attend your strand at your time. And then also we'll have a bigger Facebook group for the whole summer of people that are going all summer long. So it'll have recordings and demo videos, resources, and most importantly, it'll be a way that you can go watch the live streams later and interact with people who are in your group. So that'll be exciting, because that way you can still make some friends, even though they're socially distant virtual friends. Let me walk you through the way the Institute is structured. So first I'm going to start with a red highlighter, because you'll notice that all these red demos all say description. And that's because Monday, Tuesday, and the very first part of Wednesday, so down to here, we're going to be working on the description cycle. You're actually going to see lessons from all 4 phases or parts of the description cycle, and then you'll get all the lesson plans and resources to be able to do these in your classroom or in your online setting if you have to do distance learning next year, as well as ways that you can make this work through just packets. Of course, we're going to have like an opening festivity so that we can all have a good time and say hello. And then after that, we'll have our first demo lesson, which will be calendar talk. That is from cycle 1, phase 1. So cycle 1 is description, and then phase 1 is describing setting. And there's lots of other ways to teach lessons that describe settings, and you'll get about, I think, 7 or 8 lessons that go with cycle 1, phase 1. And you'll get pictures, and we're developing resources in German, French, and Spanish. So you'll get calendars and pictures and various settings and class surveys and visual surveys. And all of these we're making for online and in-person classes. So that'll be nice. And we're also working on some assessment materials. So we've never had that before, and I'm excited about that. Then this next lesson is actually from cycle 1, phase 2. And cycle 1, phase 2 is talking about preferences. So we'll be doing an online version of Card Talk. And actually, it's called Slide Talk. Nissa Quill made it up. I actually really like doing Slide Talk. It's a lot more, it's just a lot more like information to share with the class than you get in Card Talk. And later after I finish doing this, I'm gonna take you into my Google Drive and my Canva, and they're not all organized and ready to go yet, but I can show you a taste of some of the resources that we're gonna be putting together for you guys. On Tuesday, we will do 3 lessons, and these 3 lessons are all from the description cycle. And this one is from still cycle 1, phase 2, which is describing preferences, and it's how to do a class survey. Probably the class survey that I'll give you is about, or that we'll demo, is about different school subjects, or we might do something else. It doesn't really matter what the exact content is, because the language objective is really just to be able to describe your preferences. So I like this, I prefer this, I think it's great, I think it's not so great. And then of course, if you're teaching upper level kids, you're gonna be having a deeper conversation. Like, I like this because of this. And here's another reason why, and maybe like incorporating little stories and little examples from your life. The next thing is from cycle 1, phase 3, which is describing people on the inside and the outside. So their internal characteristics, like their personality, their emotions, their character traits, and then on the outside, like their hair, their appearance, their clothes, all that. And so we'll do a one-word image. And I love making one-word images. In fact, I could probably spend the entirety of cycle 1, phase 3 just making like 5 or 6 one-word images. Especially with some of the online tools that we've been developing, because we've all been teaching online, to help make it a little more scaffolded for the teacher, and a little feeling a little more safe and secure, and like you have structure. Myself, I'm kind of a jump off the cliff improv type of person, so I never really thought through like how to make these one-word images like feel safe and feel doable, more like a choice board or like an interactive writing activity. And so I'm excited to have developed some of those things, because I had to, because I've been teaching French online. After this, we'll do a visual survey, which comes from cycle 1, phase 4. And cycle 1, phase 4 is all about describing things in the present and the past. So in this visual survey, which is basically a series of pictures, so you kind of do like a series of picture talks, and then at the end, the students vote on some aspect of these 4 pictures. You can have more than 4 pictures, but it needs to be really a multiple of 4, because at the end, you're gonna have, usually it's better to have like 4 categories. So if you have like old telephones and new telephones and old computers and new computers, this is in one called Old School Tech. And then at the end, they vote on like which one they want to write about, or which one they think is, represents the most change. Or you could have which one represents the biggest impact on our daily lives or our family relationships, like for 3rd year, 4th year, AP or IB type of class. So you can use the same pictures and drill them down or up depending on the level of your class. So what you have at the end of a visual survey is 4 pictures, and they basically, on some aspect of them, vote on which one they want to bring forward and write about during the next part of the lesson, which would be reviewing and then going into write and discuss or shared writing. There's other ways to do it, but I really like write and discuss and use it most days. Shared writing and shared reading. So this is the first cycle that we're going to be working with, which is description. Then we'll go into narration, which is, excuse me. Narration is cycle 2. And again, we're going to spend the rest of the time on there. So you'll be able to see lessons from all 4 of the phases of cycle 2, narration, which is basically stories. Then at the end, you'll notice that we come back to cycle 1 for the summative assessment. That's because in my classes, when I give a summative assessment, I like to pull things from like a few weeks ago. So usually the summative assessment would come here at the end of cycle 1, but I would generally be pulling things from back in these sort of first 2 to 3 phases, because this last part is going to be really like fresh on their minds, and so they're not going to do as well on it. Also, they are going to feel a bigger, I have found my students feel a bigger sense of accomplishment when I'm pulling things from the first 3 parts of the cycle, because they don't feel like, well, I just memorized that. We just did that 3 days ago. They know in a different way because they've kind of forgotten the details of it. It shows them in a more meaningful way to them that they've actually retained a lot of language. And I don't give them anything to prepare with. I don't tell them what the topic is going to be. I just tell them we're going to have an assessment and they're going to do really well on it. And generally they do. My students pretty much like 100% are exceeding the standards that Portland Public Schools sets for them. And it's really no surprise, considering that the exit criterion for the first year and even the second year is like novice high, intermediate low, and then intermediate mid. And they are definitely able to perform at an intermediate mid or intermediate low level, even within the first months of first year. So generally they're doing really, really well. To dive in to the second part, or the second cycle, narration here and here, and all the way up to here, let's look at the lessons in here. So the first thing that you're going to have is a visual story. And since it's going to be delivered online, I'll be able to show you a visual story that is really cool. It uses technology, and it's basically like a DIY movie talk. So it's like do-it-yourself movie talk, and they're very customizable and also super easy to make. So this is from cycle 2, sorry, phase 1, which is personal stories. So this visual story will be about your instructor. And if you were going to do the same strategy, you would want to either use this strategy of telling a visual story or some other strategy to tell stories about your life. And of course, like personal stories don't just mean the teacher, ways to elicit from other students or from students in class their personal stories as well. And speaking of that, the second lesson, cycle 2, phase 1 still, is also still personal stories. So you're going to see your instructor using a graphic organizer called a story mountain to elicit and retell to the class a story that's interesting about one of the members in the class. So again, this is a personal story. It's not making it up. It's already happened to someone. And I put this first because A, personalization is more compelling to kids, and B, it's easier for us to kind of get our feet wet with narration without having to like create a story. For so many years, the only way I knew how to do CI was by creating stories with my class. And I'm pretty creative, but it sometimes was like scary actually, to have to like create a story when I wasn't really feeling all that creative that day. So I really wanted to show how we can just dive in to telling stories in a much more structured, much more planned out and scaffolded for the teacher way. The second part of the narration unit is imaginative stories. So imaginative stories could really take several different forms. They could be stories that you make with the class. And in that case, I would highly recommend using a one-word image. They could also be, because one-word images usually make the best stories. You could also just use a story mountain or a story map or a timeline input chart or any other kind of like input chart or graphic organizer. You could use any kind of graphic organizer that helps your students to just like structure a story. And you could just ask them the details like, hey, you guys, we're gonna make up a story. All right, who do we want to put in the story? What do we want them to do? So all the details could be imaginary or made up to sort of fit in with the focus of cycle 2, phase 2, which is imaginative stories. You could also do what this strategy shows you to do, and that is to either like make up a story on your own or have a student turn in a story, or in this case, it'll be using a literary story. So like Le Petit Prince or Don Quixote or some kind of really well-known literary story that is of cultural significance to, large numbers of speakers of the language. Then the third phase of cycle 2 is telling cultural stories. So with cultural stories, that means like folk tales or legends or myths or any story that's culturally important. So we're going to do a strategy called reverse movie talk, which basically is like movie talk, except for it's got the extra sort of bonus of helping your kids not complain so much that you're pausing the video. I don't know about you, but my students would often complain to me that I was like cheating them out of the experience of watching the video. So that's why I invented or just kind of tweaked it and made up the strategy of reverse movie talk. So basically what you do is start with a target language video, and then you just play it for them. And it really helps if it's a video that was made for like kindergartners. So you can tell them, I would tell them this in English. Hey, you guys, we're going to be looking at a video of an important cultural tale from Senegal or Haiti or wherever. And it's made for little kids who speak French. So don't worry too much. It's probably going to be relatively easy for people to listen to. And I'm going to take it down to 0.75% speed on YouTube. So let's just watch it. So you just play it through with like maybe subtitles on, maybe French subtitles, not English. Maybe the subtitles on, maybe the subtitles off. But if your kids are like most of the kids in this world, it's still going to be too fast and they're not really going to get much of it. Maybe the gist of it, but they're not going to get much. For upper level kids, I'll probably play it just at full speed, just because you want it to be a challenge. You want them to like want to know more about the video. And this is where kind of the like brain, the mind tricks come in. So after that, you say, all right, you guys, I'm just going to explain to you in French some of the details of the video that you might have missed. So they're generally more inclined to sit and listen and value your skills as a teacher at making it comprehensible to them and pausing and pointing things out. And then afterwards, you just watch it again with the maybe subtitles on and probably still at 0.75 speed. And then you can even watch it again and give them some extension activities like a close activity or some, kind of processing where they're supposed to like write what they hear in English or illustrate what they're hearing and maybe label it with words that they gather, out of the video. So that reverse movie talk kind of saved my life because my kids would often get pretty snarky with the old movie talks. The next part of the cycle 2, which is narration, is phase 4, and it's the last one. Each cycle only has 4 phases. So the last phase is historical stories. So these are stories about people that generally probably going to tell stories that have some kind of cultural tie to someone who speaks the language or to a country or a region or a community where the language is spoken. And so we'll do in here a pace lesson, which will start with a reading that talks about a cultural, like a historically significant story. And also we'll do like some pre-teaching, and then we'll do the pace lesson. So like using a visual story or like a story mountain, I haven't quite decided yet, or a narrative input chart, some kind of way to get the content and some of the important language from the story into the students' minds, which you will be the student, and then to follow that up with this pace reading. So that targets a certain language function, or sorry, a certain like language feature. So maybe like j'ai regardé versus like je suis venu. Maybe the different verbs that you use as the auxiliary in the passé composé in French. Something. I don't know exactly what it's going to be yet. It kind of depends on. Well, you can kind of do it 2 ways. You could like start with a story and then play on the reading, or you can start with a grammar point, play on the reading, and then play on the story. Not quite sure how that's going to work, but it's going to be really interesting because in no other summer institutes before have we ever actually modeled pace lessons. So I'm excited about that. And then the next day, this is sort of a culminating activity, which could be used in any one of the phases. And actually, all of these strategies could be used in any one of the phases of cycle 2. And like all of these strategies could also be used, most of them, in any one of the phases of cycle 1. So actually, if you have the strategies from these lessons, so if you can do calendar talk, and you can do card talk or slide talk, and you can do a class survey, and you can do a one-word image, and you can do a visual survey, and you can do a checkpoint assessment, that's kind of like enough, honestly, to get you through 5 weeks of instruction. Just because from cycle 1, phase 1, to phase 2, to phase 3, to phase 4, the content is going to be changing. The language focus is going to be changing. And so therefore, like if you're just relying on the same really good strategies over and over throughout the whole cycle, you are going to be fine. You don't have to learn like every strategy in the book, and you can just calm down. Also, we're giving you the materials and the lesson plans, so hopefully the Summer Institutes will make you feel really calm. So this, fortunately and unfortunately, is a fun game, but it could be played with anything to kind of review and reinforce. And then, like I said, at the very end of the week, you will take a summative portfolio assessment, which will be about cycle 1. And it'll build on the skills that you developed as a student in the class to self-assess your work during the checkpoint assessment. And so you'll be kind of seeing your growth, which will give you a good experience of what it's like to be a student. Then in the afternoon, you'll notice that there's information right here. And that's because I want to give you just a taste of the splendor that is the information cycle. In the other strand, we're going to be doing basically information almost all week long. And then we'll also touch on opinion and argument. The opinion and argument use a lot of the same strategies and a lot of the same systems and structures as information. So people who do that strand are going to get a lot of really powerful ways that basically underlie the entire second semester of Stepping Stones. And so in the afternoon, I just want to give everybody a taste. So both strands are actually going to be with me for these for this 50-minute period after lunch. And I'll teach you I'll just take you through sort of a little fakie lesson, or like a little fakie kind of series of lessons just to help you see these strategies. So I'll teach you about the cat, the dog, and the hamster. And I'll do a narrative, or I'll do a visual syllabus. And then we'll do the first subtopic, which is hamsters, actually. And I'll give you an input chart on hamsters. And then we'll play the word card review game, which is a super powerful strategy that you'll actually see, especially in the narration unit, you'll see the teacher modeling the word card review game in several of the lessons. I don't know exactly which ones. And the reason they're not listed is because these are the input strategies. So the word card review game is a review strategy, which comes after the input, obviously, because you can't review what you don't know. So this reinforces a review strategy that you'll see in the narration cycle, which is the thought bubble review game. It's a really fun game. I know it sounds lame, but it's not. It's super fun. And then we will go to this amazing strategy, which I just love, of expert group readings. So I really want you guys to have the experience of knowing how to do these super scaffolded readings, even though you're, not officially taking the other strand. You might take both. It's a super good deal. And maybe you'll just take both. You have all summer. So you can watch them recorded, you can watch them live, and you get like a package discount if you do both. So you might as well do both. Then at the end, we'll do a process grid, which basically takes the cat, the dog, and the hamster, and the information that you learned about. So here you do just the hamster, and then here you're still just talking about the hamster, and here the expert groups are going to read about the cat and the dog, because we've already done the expert group reading over here on the hamster. So there's 3 expert group readings because there's the cat, the dog, and the hamster. So we're gonna learn about the hamster, learn about the hamster, read about the hamster, and then in these very structured parallel readings that are super easy for the kids to read, yet also a challenge. I know it sounds paradoxical, but that's why this is such a powerful system, which I learned from Project Glad. Okay, I did not make this up. I just modified it and adapted it and learned it from them. So the expert groups on Thursday will read about the cat and the dog, and then we'll process the cat, the dog, and the hamster in the process grid on Friday. It's, might even be in English. I might teach it in French. I'm not sure. I haven't really thought through it. Maybe I'll teach it in French. I'll probably show you guys more about the promise of doing these expert group readings. Or maybe we can do it in, nah, I can't, because I can't teach it. I was thinking maybe I could like ask a less commonly taught language to do it. Who knows? Maybe I will. Then in the afternoon, this is like the nuts and bolts stuff. Okay. So every afternoon, there's 3 different sessions about things that will help you to implement the stuff that you're learning in the mornings and to be able to put the stuff that we're giving you, all the curriculum and the materials and resources, into practice in your classroom and have a strong pathway to where you want to go next year. So we'll talk about daily lesson planning and how to sequence the year and how to build cross-curricular literacy, some tips on classroom management, daily grades and assessment, setting up a reading program, how to make this checkpoint assessment work. So a lot of times I've actually planned from what we're doing in the morning to follow up with that in the afternoon. So it's very well sequenced. So even if you're watching it like asynchronously, I highly recommend going through it in the order that it was put out, because I've been working on the structure of this for a couple of years now, and I really think this is the best way to present this information. Then word work, and you notice we just did the word card review game. And then setting student goals, self-assessment, and reflection. You will have done that in the morning, so we're just, of course, bringing that down as well. Then we'll talk about student jobs, classroom management. Classroom management is a big topic, so I think it behooves us to talk about it twice. Differentiation and planning multiple levels. So I touched on that earlier in this video, and that will help you to calm down and not have to plan so much, because you can actually do the same strategy and the same topic and the same theme in a lighter way with your beginners and in a deeper way with your advanced class. And then this is probably, to me, the most important part right down here, building a spiral and multi-year curriculum. So knowing that we're going somewhere with our instruction and we're not just like telling random stories or like doing these disconnected units and not having like a pathway about what does a 4-year program look like? What does a 2-year program look like? What does a 1-year program look like? Where do I start at the beginning of the year and where do I want to go? And what's the pathway to get there by the end of the year? Then at the end of the day, we're going to have burning questions and answers. You notice here there's a lot more time to debrief with your instructor from the morning. So you might have burning questions and answers coming up, and we will try to make sure that we answer those burning questions for you. And then we'll have our see you later, and it'll be time to go. But you'll always have the recordings. So if you have to duck out or you can't be there a day or two, or you just want to go back and review certain parts, you'll get the recordings in like hour-long increments. So that'll make it easy for you to be able to go back and find the little parts that you want. All right, I would highly recommend that you go ahead and sign up. It's a pretty good bargain, and you're gonna get a lot of value. And I honestly just wish I could wave a magic wand over the entire world language teaching profession that's working on communication-based language teaching and give them all this system. No matter what content you want to use, like no matter what you're doing, no matter how you're teaching, no matter if you have to like use the textbook or follow the textbook structure, no matter if you have other resources that you like to use, this system, I know this now because I've been working with a lot of teachers for a couple of years now with this system, especially this last year. And I have always been able to help them integrate the requirements and the things they want to do and the things they need to do into this framework and this structure. So I really think it would be totally worth your while and very impactful for you to attend. So think about it, and I hope I see you there.